welcome to the Here We Go podcast. I am your host, Trent Ging. Wasn't planning on doing this one today, but just kind of felt based on some of the things I keep seeing on X about Broderick Jones being a bust. Colin and I touched on some of this yesterday when we did the live session, so if you haven't seen that, check that out. But I want to put this out here just to kind of explain some things that I really feel like are going on here. So, number one, I'm going to repeat a little bit of what we talked about yesterday. I have always felt like this team is kind of mishandled the way they've brought Broderick Jones kind of into the mix of things. He's a guy who was a very, very raw player coming out of college. And I think for some reason, the Steeler fan base just assumed this thing was just going to work right from day one. Unfortunately, that's just not how it goes a lot of times. He had limited starting experience in college. He was a one-year starter. So it's not like the same situation as what we're about to watch with Troy Falatanu making his first start coming tomorrow. It's not the same situation as what we've seen with Zach Frazier making his starts already as a rookie. He's a very raw, very limited experienced player. He was not a plug-and-play guy. He played as a rookie, and don't get me wrong, I was calling for him to play too because I wanted to see him on the field. But he played as a rookie because of something that Chooks did wrong, not because Broderick did something right. He got moved to right tackle because he wasn't better than Dan Moore Jr. That doesn't make him a bust. The misconception is if you come out of college and you're not immediately having an impact on your team, that you're a bust. I do think this. A guy who is raw with limited playing experience in college and the NFL for that matter, he's played about 12 games. I personally know the argument is that it doesn't matter if he's on the right or if he's on the left side. It doesn't matter to him. But to me, a guy who's working on technique, you need to work on the same technique day in and day out until you've got it down pat. Well, there is a difference between playing on the right and playing on the left because everything that you do is now reversed. So this flip-flopping that they have him doing, I actually disagree with some of the people who are probably smarter than me at this. I do think it is an impactful thing. I think it is stunting his development a little bit. I don't think that makes him a bust, though. Okay? Sitting on the bench week 2 and his second season of NFL football, because you have a ready-made guy in Troy Falatanu who has way more experience and is actually older than Broderick, just so we're clear, is going to start. And that he has not beat Dan Moore Jr. out on the left side. Let's start really giving this kid some real work on the left side finally. And let's teach him technique on the left side of the field so that maybe he actually is an impactful player and can be our long-term starter on that side. Yes, he's banged up. Yes, he's wearing an arm brace that he absolutely despises. Let him get healthy. I mean, do we really feel like the only way we're going to beat Denver is if Broderick Jones is starting at left? I don't think so. Number one, Dan Moore Jr. has played very well. Like him or hate him, it doesn't matter. The reality is he's played well. Clearly something was wrong with Broderick in the preseason. He wasn't terrible in that first game, but he wasn't right either. He's not an exploding off the ball in the run game, which is his strength. Last year, his strength was the run game, and it didn't look like a strength for him in that week 1 matchup against Atlanta. Something is wrong. Whether the team is telling us or not, whether he wants to talk about it or not. It doesn't really matter. You can see it in his game. He didn't all of a sudden forget how to run block. He was a powerful mauling guy last year who opened up the run game. When he came in, he honestly opened the run game up. We increased our yards per carry once he was in the starting lineup. Everything started flowing better. He was pulling. He was so athletic coming around the edge, pulling from that right to left side at times, getting out in space and finding guys and locating them and making sure that he doesn't miss blocks. He made mistakes. He's a rookie. But that game that was such an upside that we saw flashes of it last year, and you're not seeing it so far week one. I understand the team's position and sitting him down. And to be perfectly honest with you, I'm not going to be pissed off if he sits week 2 and week 3. Whatever is bothering him and whatever technique he needs to continue to work on, let him work on it. We need Broderick for the back half of the season. We need him healthy the back half of the season. When Myles Garrett comes to town, we need a healthy Broderick Jones that's ready for that matchup. I don't know if he's going to win that matchup, but we need him to be ready for it. So labeling a guy a bust after one season of NFL football is quite insane. Now, if he goes throughout this entire season this year and he does not make progress, and next year he's also still not the starting left tackle, then I've got questions. I think there's cause for concern that the development's not a little further along than what it is, but I really attribute most of it to the way he's been handled more so than the player himself. They need to quit flip-flopping him from right to left. He's a guy who's got issues with technique. Let him learn the technique, for the love of God. Please let him learn technique. We need to stop with the notion that Broderick Jones is a bust after one NFL season of football when he only had 1 year as a starter in college. Guys, you're jumping the gun. I get it. This is a show-me-now league now. It's not the days back, 30 years ago when the Steelers wouldn't even hardly play rookies. But a guy having 1 year of football, you can't label him a bust. My God. It took us 3 years to label Devin Bush a bust. But you're going to do it to Broderick Jones this quickly? Like, seriously? I think it's a little bit of an overreaction. I think people need to calm down, take a deep breath, understand that Broderick needed time coming out of college. I mean, it was all over his draft profile. If any of you took time to look at any draft profile from any network, they all said the same thing. He was a very raw prospect who was going to need time to develop. And I'm sorry, but raw prospects generally take at least 2 years to figure it out. We're just starting year 2. He wasn't going to have it figured out yet. I wanted him to, as much as anybody else in the fan base. Hell, I argued with, me and Colin both were shouting at the rooftops to get this guy starting at left tackle and leave him there. Let this young group grow together. We've been pounding that drum since day one. That's not the way it was handled. That's not the way it played out. I personally think it's been a detriment to Broderick's growth. And I think they need to work his ass at left tackle as much as humanly possible moving forward. So I know I sound like I'm on a soapbox a little bit, but I think it's because it's insane to me to label a guy a bust after one NFL season. Insane. Broderick Jones is going to be just fine. He has all of the measurables, all of the traits you want from a guy who can be a franchise left tackle. He needed the time to learn and develop and grow, and he's in the process of it right now. We're so wrapped up in Dan Moore Jr. is the worst left tackle in the league because PFF said so, that we're trying to ship his ass out of town and get Broderick Jones starting. It don't matter. Listen, I can tell you right now, Dan Moore Jr. was far, far from the worst left tackle in football week 1. And I don't think he's going to be in the category of worst left tackle in football week 2. Denver doesn't have the type of edge rushers. And, I mean, against a guy like Matthew Judon, that would have been a great game for Broderick to be inserted as a left tackle simply because Dan Moore Jr. couldn't block Matthew Judon. That's not what happened. Dan Moore played his best game that I maybe has ever seen him as a Steeler. Right now, this isn't even necessarily about Broderick just not being a good player. Maybe just Dan Moore is that much better right now. You guys got to wake up to the realization that even if he's a first-round pick and Dan Moore was a fourth-round pick, if Moore's playing better, Moore's the guy who needs to be in the game right now. That's just the way it is. I don't love it. But in a Mike Tomlin system, he's playing best player available. He does not care about your status. He don't care about your pedigree, which is exactly why Justin Fields might steal this job from Russell Wilson if he continues to play well and continues to grow his game. Are any of you going to be yelling and screaming from the rooftops that we should play Russell Wilson because he's the Super Bowl champion? He's the guy who was on a Hall of Fame track for a bit of his career, good portion of his career. I doubt anybody in the fan base is going to be yelling and screaming about that because he's the older guy. Coach Tomlin doesn't care. He's playing the guy he feels is the best position to give him a W that week. Dan Moore right now is the guy who fits that mold. Broderick just hasn't figured it out yet, and he will. He will. You just have to give him time. You have to be patient. So I don't have any notes on this one. I didn't really research anything. I just keep seeing all this talk about him being a bust, and I had to address it. And it was going to be more than the characters allowed on Twitter. So listen, guys, take a deep breath. The sky is not falling. Broderick Jones will be fine. He will be your franchise left tackle at some point. And I honestly believe at some point this season, he takes the reins on the starting left tackle spot. So I hope y'all have a good weekend. Let's go get a W on Sunday. Hope you enjoy the game. Let me know what you think. Like, share, subscribe, leave some feedback for me so that I can continue to work on making these better. Have a good day.